I'm Norm Augustine. I'm the retired chairman and CEO of Lockheed Martin. And prior to that, I was the Undersecretary of the Army, and I served for a few years on the faculty of the engineering school at Princeton University. I'm currently a member of the Guiding Coalition of the Project on National Security Reform, an effort that I've devoted considerable effort to in recent months because of the importance I assign to it. In this day and age in national security, we find ourselves in a situation where we have two wars going on. We still have a great threat of terrorism here at home. And it's a quite different world than in the past. Yet our military apparatus, the national security apparatus as a whole, was really designed to stop Soviet tanks to fill the gap, which is a threat that is not particularly relevant today, obviously. We find ourselves then in a really a new world. And one of the profound changes in this new world is that for the first time in history, really, individuals or small groups of individuals acting by themselves can seriously impact the lives of very large groups. We've seen that through terrorism, and then to date, as tragic as those acts have been, the means have largely been rather primitive on the scale of what they might be. And for example, in the future, we're going to have to worry about terrorists who may well have in their possession biological weapons or nuclear weapons. And that poses an entirely new category of threat that we'd have to be prepared to deal with. Also, during the Cold War era, we were able to rely on technology to a great extent to offset the size of our military forces. We maintained smaller forces but more capable because of the leverage that technology gave us. But unfortunately, at least to date, technology has not given us great leverage over the terrorist-type threat. Certainly it has an impact and an important role, but it's not proven anything approaching decisive. And so that's still another change that we need to contend with. So the time has come, at least in my view, that our national security apparatus, which importantly includes the civilian elements of that as well as the uniformed military, it's time that that apparatus needs to be realigned, reformed, if you will, to better match today's needs. It's going to be a very tough job because not only are the changes immense, both politically and culturally, as well as in the more conventional framework of change, but we face a situation of greater demands on our federal budget, demands from healthcare, from energy, from the environment, and many other arenas, important demands, such that today we find ourselves with an ever-declining share of discretionary funds to be spent. And it's, of course, from those funds that most of our national security forces come. So in this world of declining resources and increasing demands, we have an immense challenge. And I believe it's important that we remember that with a great emphasis now being placed on terrorism, unconventional warfare, all very appropriate, I don't believe we can lose sight of the more conventional types of warfare that one has faced in the past. Certainly no nation would sensibly attack the United States with conventional forces. Our capability is too great. On the other hand, nations are known to do foolish things in history. There are nations in this world that have strong conventional forces that we might confront, not here at home, but in places in the world where we have major interests. So that's what the Guiding Coalition is addressing, and I believe it's important. The national security system is, of course, a very complex apparatus, and most of the capability and the discipline was really built into the Defense Department, run out of the Pentagon. But today's national security problems, to a lesser degree when I was Undersecretary, but still an important degree, involve the State Department, they involve the Agriculture Department, the nation rebuilding, Commerce Department. And, it cuts across the government, and one of our strengths has really not been the ability to coordinate and communicate well across the government. So that's one factor. I think another factor that was beginning to take hold when I was last in the Pentagon, and is, I think, of much more importance today, is the fact that with the budgets we have and the cost of the equipment we buy such small quantities that unit costs just go out of sight. And that makes necessary, I think, to have a whole new strategy of how we procure equipment, what kind of equipment we buy, how much of it we buy. I think there are other challenges that we've seen having to do with coalition warfare, working with our allies. That's proved to be very problematical over the years. And yet, I think in the world we're entering, where America's role, I believe, will inevitably be smaller than in the past, where our authority will be less than in the past, largely for economic reasons. In that world, we're going to have to rely on allies. We're not going to be able to do things alone. And to date, that's been something that's, other than in a very few instances, not been very effective.
What do you think is different about the effort by the Project on National Security Reform compared with other groups that have studied the national security system?
Most of the studies of the national security system, and of course there have been an immense number, focus on a specific problem rather than the overall breadth of issues that relate to national security. Also, it's been very rare, if ever, that a group of the caliber that's been working on this project, and I'm speaking of the working people particularly, has been gathered, and that they've been given enough time and enough resources to really get into depth, not just on one or two aspects of the issue, but on the cross-cutting issues, the interlinkages that are so important.
Should this be a major priority of the next president?
I think national security is likely to always be the first priority of any president, at least in my view. The president, in this case, that's elected this coming November, will face probably as many or more problems than any president ever before. Really important problems: health care, national security, the environment, the economy, the energy supply. And these are world-class tough problems. But I think the first duty of the president is to ensure the security of our citizens.